In a time when speculation often clouds clarity, today's developments bring a refreshing dose of real-world insight. Welcome back to Iraqi Dinar News, where we focus on facts, not fiction. If you've been closely following the chatter surrounding the Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong, the latest signals from the Central Bank of Iraq and the World Trade Organization might just mark the turning point everyone has been anticipating. What we're seeing now are not whispers or rumors, but tangible steps backed by official sources, suggesting real progress toward revaluing both currencies. For years, discussions surrounding the Iraqi dinar revaluation have dominated forums, blogs, and financial circles, the currency's official rate hovering near 1,300 dinars per US dollar, has long been criticized as failing to reflect Iraq's actual economic power. Now, for the first time in a while, the Central Bank of Iraq has publicly acknowledged efforts to guide the dinar toward a rate more aligned with its underlying fundamentals. These moves are not speculative noise. Iraq is now actively working alongside global financial institutions, including the WTO, to overhaul and modernize its monetary policy framework. What exactly does real rate imply? It's a reference to a value based not on speculation, but on purchasing power, productivity, and the nation's economic output. Iraq, with its vast reserves of oil and natural gas, has long been viewed as a sleeping economic giant, but its suppressed currency has reflected years of conflict and restrictions. Today, the tides appear to be shifting. Iraq's political situation is gradually stabilizing. Its oil exports are climbing, and foreign investors are showing renewed interest in the country. Recent communication from the central bank strongly suggests that the current exchange rate no longer matches Iraq's fiscal reality. Although there's no immediate promise of the dinar matching the dollar, there is a concrete move away from mere speculation and toward implementation of monetary policy that reflects actual economic strength. Those holding dinar may now have more reason for optimism. A return to even a portion of its former value could bring significant upside. But Iraq isn't alone on this path. Vietnam's currency, the dong, has remained low for years, despite the country's rapid emergence as a global manufacturing and export hub. The World Trade Organization recently issued a statement praising Vietnam's economic reforms, hinting that a more adaptable and internationally aligned currency model may soon follow. While Vietnam hasn't yet issued a formal revaluation announcement, the language used by international organizations suggests that change is on the horizon. The broader significance lies in timing and collaboration. Both Iraq and Vietnam have historically operated with dual or artificially fixed exchange rates, which hindered transparency and limited integration with global markets. Now, under increasing influence from global institutions like the IMF and WTO, both nations are overhauling their financial systems. Iraq has rolled out new digital payment systems and is steadily reforming its banking structure. Vietnam, on the other hand, has inked new trade agreements and made itself more welcoming to foreign capital. These reforms are not occurring in isolation. They're part of long-term national strategies aimed at establishing a firm place in the international economic system. As their economies become more globally active, the need for accurately valued currencies becomes more pressing. These reforms and policy shifts are not short-term fixes. They reflect structural adjustments designed to support sustainable economic growth. On the numbers side, insiders report that Iraq's Ministry of Finance and Central Bank are reviewing a proposal to revise the exchange rate closer to 800 IQD per US dollar, a significant adjustment from the current rate of about 1,300. While this hasn't been made official yet, the fact that such a number is under serious review is a signal that meaningful change is being considered. And despite that number moving the format up, in Vietnam's case, financial sources suggest a potential movement of the dong toward 15,000 per USD, up from its current level of over 23,000. Should these projections come to fruition, the impact could be dramatic for investors. The question now turning heads is, how would currency exchanges work post-revaluation? Historically, when governments implement major changes to monetary systems, they outline clear processes for transitioning old notes into new ones. In Iraq, there has already been talk about removing 3 zeros, meaning a 25,000 dinar note might be converted into a 25 dinar note. While the value in local terms remains stable, the simplification would make the currency easier to handle and could potentially fight inflation, provided it's supported by a stronger exchange rate. This introduces the importance of broader factors, namely political consistency, transparent governance, and public trust. Currency strength doesn't happen in a vacuum. One reliable way to track these shifts is through the metric of purchasing power parity, or PPP. This indicator compares how much a unit of currency can buy at home versus abroad. For instance, if a meal costs $1.00 in the United States and an identical meal costs 1 dinar in Iraq, PPP would suggest the currencies are at parity. However, this theoretical balance is rarely seen due to inflation, market behavior, and policy inconsistencies. Iraq's goal now is to push the dinar's purchasing power closer to that theoretical parity, and Vietnam appears to be aiming for similar progress. Both countries are embracing long-term strategies involving productivity growth, infrastructure development, and expanded trade networks. These initiatives go hand in hand with currency strengthening. Another pillar supporting this shift is foreign reserves. Iraq's central bank has reportedly amassed more than $100 billion, 0 cents, in foreign currencies and gold, a powerful financial buffer that provides leverage in monetary policy, cushions against global economic shocks, and increases the nation's capacity to defend its currency. Meanwhile, Vietnam's continued trade surpluses and surge in investment have allowed it to build similar cushions. Foreign investment is another critical factor driving these changes. In Iraq, there's been a wave of new agreements across oil, construction, and technology sectors. Gulf nations and Western investors are re-engaging, showing renewed confidence in Iraq's long-term trajectory. These investments don't just support infrastructure growth, they generate demand for the local currency, particularly when contracts are denominated in dinars. The more transactions tied directly to IQD, the more embedded and essential the currency becomes in day-to-day economic activity. Vietnam is experiencing a similar pattern. Major corporations are shifting production operations into the country, drawn by competitive costs and steadily improving supply chains. These developments mean more capital flowing into the Vietnamese economy, reinforcing the case for a stronger dong. When international businesses make long-term bets on a country's growth, they also demand reliability and transparency in its currency system. That pressure often becomes a catalyst for monetary reform. Innovation, of course, has always surrounded the Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong. For some, it's been a calculated risk with the potential for high reward. For others, it's part of a diversified strategy looking ahead to long-term shifts in global economics. But what sets this current moment apart is the convergence of speculation with tangible structural reform. These aren't just lofty predictions anymore. There are official announcements, real proposals, and internationally backed roadmaps in motion. The recent updates from the Central Bank of Iraq and the WTO offer more than vague reassurance. They point to deliberate efforts to modernize, stabilize, and strengthen. When credible institutions get involved and back those reforms with data and support, the investment community takes notice. If both Iraq and Vietnam remain committed to the paths they've started down, then what was once considered merely speculative could soon evolve into a real, profitable reality for holders of these currencies. From a local perspective, the implications of stronger currencies are even more meaningful. For the people of Iraq, a stronger dinar could mean more affordable imports, better infrastructure, and greater economic mobility. It could reduce inflation, increase government spending power, and even stabilize domestic markets. For Vietnam's population, similar outcomes could lead to improved wages, enhanced quality of life, and more consistent pricing in the face of global economic changes. However, the transition must be managed with precision. Move too fast and the economy risks destabilization. Go too slow and reform fatigue may undercut momentum. Both governments appear to be threading that needle carefully, taking advice from international experts and proceeding with calculated steps rather than sweeping overnight changes. That measured pace bodes well for sustainability. Looking back at global examples, we've seen countries like Germany, Turkey, and South Korea undertake their own complex monetary reforms, each faced with unique challenges, but ultimately succeeding through smart policy and public buy-in. Many of these nations reduced zeros from their notes, tightened inflation, and re-established faith in their money. Iraq and Vietnam may now be following similar paths, guided by a mix of internal ambition and external support. This is why it's crucial for investors to remain informed. Avoid reacting to hype or unfounded rumors. Focus instead on official reports, economic indicators, and the underlying principles driving these changes. Currency reform isn't a lottery, it's a long game where understanding policy direction, macroeconomic strength, and regional cooperation makes all the difference. If you're holding dinar or dong today, your best strategy is clarity and patience. Diversify where necessary, seek advice from financial professionals, and invest only what you're comfortable risking. Currency realignment is a complex process, but when guided by real data and institutional support, it opens doors to legitimate opportunity. The latest statements from Iraq's central bank and the WTO represent a new chapter. These aren't isolated declarations, they're part of a much larger shift, with foreign reserves climbing, foreign capital flowing in, and both countries moving toward transparent and flexible monetary systems. The path forward is becoming clearer. Whether the changes take place gradually through appreciation or come in the form of broader revaluation, it's becoming harder to deny that movement is underway. What once seemed out of reach is now appearing more plausible with each official step forward. The goal of seeing a stronger dinar or dong isn't just a hopeful dream anymore. It's beginning to look like a tangible, measurable possibility. You are witnessing history unfold, one policy at a time. For those paying attention, these developments offer a unique window of opportunity. Stay alert, stay educated, and watch how the world reacts. The future of these currencies is evolving, and Iraqi Dinar News will be here every step of the way to keep you informed. If you found this breakdown helpful or gained new perspective, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop your questions or predictions in the comments below. What are you seeing in your area? Are businesses beginning to prepare? Are banks communicating more openly? We want to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay informed, stay focused, and keep watching the signs. The road to revaluation is unfolding, and you're already on it.